Hey guys, my name is Robert Gardner. Something just happened for me on Twitter, and it really highlights the reason why I thought about making this video to begin with. I consider myself friends with Carlos Gil, a guy who I have never met. Maybe a couple of years ago, I found a video on YouTube or maybe on Facebook in an entrepreneurs group. Carlos gave some basic information. It was kind of entrepreneurial, Gary Vee style information. I follow a lot of people within those realms, and it was good information. I looked him up. I maybe found him on Twitter, engaged with him a couple times on Twitter, just kind of coming and going and passing. It's one of these things where I've never purchased anything from Carlos. I've never met him in person. We haven't engaged in person. But as I interacted with him online, you realize that, if I asked him a question, he would actually respond to me on Twitter. If I asked him a question in the comment section on a Facebook post, he would often comment. And there was just this little, exchange. And then recently, within the past maybe 6 months, he started promoting his new book. And I commented at some point on Twitter. It's like, hey, I haven't bought your new book yet, or something along those lines. And he's like, hey, what are you waiting on? And posted a link. So I went ahead and purchased the book. I went out of town recently because I was going to Washington State. I sat in the airport and on the plane probably for 2 or 3 hours, and I poured through the first half of the book. I haven't even finished it yet. But just now, I'd already thought about doing this video, by the way, but just now, I had posted a photo on Twitter of the book, added Carlos Gil, went ahead and hashtag the book or hashtag entrepreneur, something like that, just to get his attention. And he wrote me back and said, not as a private message, but on Twitter, and said, hey, what are your takeaways from the book? So he's asking me a question to get more engagement, and then he's like, would you mind writing an Amazon review? Well, Carlos, I'm willing to do much more than that. I will go review it on Amazon, but I think I'd like to put this review on YouTube so other people can find it and find who you are and get this valuable information from you. Carlos wrote a book that I think is not only engaging for its content and maybe teaching you how to use social media to build your brand, to build your personal brand, it's also entertaining. I found myself laughing many times because he took up at one point Wendy's and Chick-fil-A. And Wendy's and Chick-fil-A are always kind of battling it out on Twitter. And I've used that same information to try to talk to people in my industry, which is as a massage therapist, as an educator, as an entrepreneur. I teach online, I teach classes, I travel. I use that same example to be able to talk to massage therapists about personal branding, about who their target market is. Carlos would, copy tweets from their profiles and talk about their little turf wars in the fast food realm. It also is just an entertaining read. Not only is he giving information, and I'll just flip through here, finding your competitors, mentions in specific contexts, how to be savage, like Randy Savage, analyze what content works. I'm just flipping through here. Know your audience. What are they and what are the channels are they on? He breaks it down in fairly simple language. I don't find it overly ornate. The only thing is, if you weren't familiar with the platforms, it might be a little overwhelming. If you're anyone like me who's trying to gain attention, you're trying to use TikTok, to get information to people. You're trying to put out your personal brand. You're trying to individuate your business, your brand, your thing, your product or service. It's a really good step-by-step, dare I say, blueprint in how to engage in social media in 2019 and into the future. It's not relying on a single platform. It's being across platforms. It's the same way that maybe I follow Carlos on Facebook, but I also follow him on Twitter and I follow him on YouTube. It's not about a single platform. He's giving you good, just general game advice for how do you build the brand in the era when Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, all these platforms give you near global reach. But how do you build a brand using Instagram? This is a really excellent book. If you have not read this or you're not familiar with Carlos, I highly recommend you get on his YouTube channel, talk to him on Twitter. It's a great book all around. Like I said, I haven't even finished it yet, but I was so excited I tore through the first 100 pages like it was nothing. Extremely entertaining. I find it personal. He adds little tidbits about his own life and his own experiences with the marketing. It's not just, something he copied from somebody else's material where he's just regurgitating information about social media. He's actually a warrior in the trenches. And the reason I wanted to make this video right now is he wrote me. The whole thing is, this video, even though I'm reviewing his book, is a manifestation of how social media works. Now, my guess is when I share this video, Carlos is going to share it, which means more people see my YouTube channel, more people see my Twitter. They get to find me, they get to find out that I'm an entrepreneur, that I'm willing to review somebody's book. And if you're an entrepreneur who has a book and you'd like somebody to read it and review it, happy to. This, to me, really goes to the heart of what Carlos is addressing. The end of marketing, humanizing your brand in the age of social media and AI. This is what Carlos is selling. And this is what I've been selling. It's not about dollars. Like, Carlos probably make a pittance off the copy and sale of this one single book that he sold to me. It's not about that. It's about relationships. It's about connection. It's about having a sort of digital intimacy with people. Where if I ever met Carlos Gil now in person, I'd say, "Oh, Carlos, I'm Robert. I'm the guy who did the YouTube video about your book." That sort of connection, where I literally 5 minutes ago just got that Twitter post. I had already thought about this and how I wanted to review his book, talk about it, talk about how it benefited me. It taught me to look at social media in a slightly different way. One of the sections I really enjoyed was where he talks about the digital pirates. And if you don't know what the digital pirates are, he kind of alludes to the fact that social media platforms, digital information distribution is fairly new. We're still kind of learning how to use it. And it's ways of sort of being sneaky and crafty to sort of insert your brand into other threads, conversations. Not in a way that's like, "Hey, buy my stuff," but in a way that introduces personality in the same way that Chick-fil-A and Wendy go after each other. Really excellent book. I'm trying to think if there's other specific, tidbits, but, finding your brand mentions alongside competitor brands, using social media hashtags, especially Instagram and Twitter, to do a little bit of research about, well, what are people saying about your brands? What are people doing? People, I find on the whole in a lot of businesses, and Carlos may or may not notice this, and I'd be happy for feedback from you, Carlos. A lot of people in my industry are very afraid of social media. They're afraid of giving consumers complete open-ended feedback because they're afraid of negative Yelp reviews. What I tend to do is go the complete opposite direction because I'm not using social media to consume. I'm using social media to produce. I'm using social media to produce content that's a review of Carlos's book. When I produce, I'm not spending as much time worrying about every little review, every little 4-star review instead of 5. If anything, I'm using that 4-star review, responding to that person and giving them more information about what we do. In my case, I have a subscription service. I'm pushing into the frontiers of educating and teaching massage therapists online, something that most people say is impossible, by the way. So what do? We have a private Facebook group. That private Facebook group allows me to get feedback. It allows me to get feedback from my customers and go, "Hey, how can we make this better? How can we improve it?" I know online education isn't perfect, but how do we increase that? That connection, humanizing your brand, is at the core of what Carlos is talking about. I find it very empowering. He's going over, let's say, algorithms, the fact that you're not really a slave to the algorithm. You just have to work with the platform. It's not a matter of, well, you just have to pay Facebook now. You can't even get your stuff found. No, you just have to be crafty in what you're posting and give your audience more of what they want, which is often entertainment. Giving people entertainment value. Like, if I just did a review and it's like, well, this is a great book by Carlos Gil, boring, who cares? But if you give a little personality, if you're a guy in a cardigan and a Pink Floyd t-shirt talking about being an online entrepreneur in the massage industry, reviewing somebody's book, who didn't pay me, by the way, I've never even met Carlos in person. I decided to review this, but why? It humanizes my brand. It shows that I'm rubbing elbows, so to speak, with people like Carlos. And likely, my guess is Carlos is going to wind up sharing this video, which means it exposes me to a larger audience. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to take this video and I'm going to post it in Massage Entrepreneurs, the Facebook group I run, and what happens? More people are exposed to Carlos, more people are exposed to me, and you're humanizing your brand instead of dealing with something people think of as competition. No, not competition. Really, really good book. The last section I was reading was about Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups. I started working with Facebook groups quite a while back, found them to be advantageous to my business and social media reach. Carlos goes on section after section of showing brands how they're using Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, video production, and really connecting with people online in a heart-centered way to be able to solve problems. When Carlos wrote me that Twitter message, does he have a direct financial interest? Nah. Like, what did he make, a couple bucks, maybe? Off me buying this book pre-order on Amazon? But here's the thing. What Carlos is really doing is what he teaches. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to make the video, because it's obvious he's not just spouting information he doesn't actually use. He's actually using exactly what he's telling me. He's connecting, he's interfacing, he's integrating, he's putting together information, forming a digital network, connecting with me. When I buy his book, it's not just about me consuming this literature, it's about me forming a bigger network, because he wants access to my network and I want access to his. It's a really great book. Again, Carlos Gil, The End of Marketing. It's humanizing your brand in the age of social media and AI. I'd highly recommend this if you're any kind of entrepreneur looking at social media. I think it's essentially required reading. Really, really good stuff. I'm a big fan of Gary Vee. I'm also a big fan of Seth Godin. This is a very, very close third. I'm really interested to see what Carlos is going to produce more of over time, but it's a great read and I look forward to finishing the rest. If you have questions for me, feel free to contact me, and also Carlos, thank you so much for the book. Really appreciate it, and thanks for reaching out on Twitter. Feel free to share this around. You guys have a great day, and I'm going to go ahead and get back to work.